The world is holding its breath today, watching the Middle East with deep concern. Tensions between the United States and Iran have reached a dangerous new peak. Many are asking a very serious question: are these two nations on the brink of a full-scale war? This fear did not appear overnight. It is the result of years of distrust, sanctions, and shadow conflicts. But recent events have pushed this long-simmering hostility into the open, creating a crisis that could have consequences for the entire globe. The situation is complex, with many different actors and motivations driving the conflict forward. The immediate trigger for this crisis was a dramatic escalation between Iran and Israel. Just last week, the two regional powers engaged in direct military confrontations. Israel launched a significant military campaign and Iran retaliated with its own powerful missile attacks. The exchange resulted in hundreds of casualties on both sides, shocking the international community. This direct conflict between Israel and Iran set the stage for a much larger confrontation. It created a volatile environment where any new action could have unpredictable and far-reaching effects, pulling other powerful nations into the fray. This recent fighting provided the context for America's direct involvement. The United States, a close ally of Israel, has long viewed Iran's nuclear program as a primary threat to regional and global security. When its key ally came under direct fire from Iranian missiles, the pressure in Washington to act intensified significantly. For years, American policy has been focused on preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. The sight of open warfare between Israel and Iran, combined with ongoing concerns about Iran's nuclear ambitions, appears to have been the final catalyst for the White House. The situation has now moved beyond a regional dispute. The direct entry of the United States military transforms the conflict entirely. It is no longer just a battle between Iran and Israel. It is now a direct confrontation between Washington and Tehran. This raises the stakes for everyone. The decisions made in the coming hours and days in Washington, Tehran, and other world capitals will determine whether this crisis escalates into a devastating regional war, or if diplomacy can somehow pull the situation back from the edge of the abyss. Over the weekend, the United States military executed a major operation against Iran. The mission, codenamed Operation Midnight Hammer, was a series of targeted airstrikes. On the nights of June 21st and 22nd, American forces attacked three of Iran's most important nuclear facilities. These sites, located at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, are central to Iran's nuclear program. The attack was carried out using advanced weaponry. B-2 stealth bombers, which are difficult for radar to detect, flew long distances to drop powerful bunker-buster bombs designed to destroy heavily fortified underground structures. The Pentagon's goal was to inflict maximum damage on Iran's ability to enrich uranium. In addition to the stealth bombers, the U.S. Navy launched Tomahawk cruise missiles from warships in the region. These missiles are known for their precision and ability to fly at low altitudes to avoid detection before hitting their targets. President Donald Trump announced the success of the operation, claiming the strikes had obliterated the Iranian facilities. However, independent analysts are still working to verify the full extent of the damage. The use of such powerful and precise weapons sends a clear message about American military capability. Despite the scale of the attack, the White House insists that the United States is not at war with Iran. Administration officials have repeatedly described the strikes as limited and defensive in nature. Their stated purpose was to eliminate an immediate threat and prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. President Trump has framed the action as a choice forced upon him by Iranian aggression. He has also issued a stark warning, threatening further military action unless Iran agrees to make peace and halt its nuclear ambitions, even suggesting a change in Iran's government is a possible outcome. This official position creates a confusing and tense reality on the ground. While U.S. leaders say they do not want war, their actions are seen by many as an act of war. The strikes have bypassed the U.S. Congress, a move that has drawn sharp criticism from many Democrats. They argue that the president has risked dragging the country into another disastrous conflict in the Middle East, without proper legal authority or a clear strategy. The gap between the administration's words and its military actions has left the world uncertain about what America's true intentions are. Iran's response to the American attack was swift and furious. Tehran immediately condemned the strikes as a blatant act of aggression and a violation of international law. At an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council, Iran's ambassador stated that his country reserves all options to defend its sovereignty. This language is a clear signal that retaliation is being considered. To show its resolve, Iran launched another missile toward Israel, though it was successfully intercepted. It also activated its air defense systems over its capital city, Tehran, preparing for the possibility of more attacks. Iranian leaders have been defiant, rejecting any calls for negotiation while under military threat. Hardline voices within the country are now demanding a more forceful response. Some are even pushing for Iran to withdraw completely from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT. If Iran were to leave the treaty, it would remove the last remaining international oversights on its nuclear program. This would be interpreted by many as a clear signal that Iran intends to openly pursue the development of nuclear weapons, which is the very outcome the US strikes were meant to prevent. The international community has reacted with a mixture of alarm and division. Key American allies like the United Kingdom, France, and Australia expressed support for the goal of stopping Iran from getting a nuclear bomb, but they did not participate in the attack and urged de-escalation. In contrast, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised the strikes as historic and necessary. However, other major world powers, including China and Russia, strongly condemned the US action. They warned that the attack would only make the situation worse and could ignite a wider, uncontrollable conflict across the entire region. The crisis has also triggered immediate economic and security fears. A major concern is the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway controlled by Iran through which about 1/5 of the world's oil passes. Threats from within Iran to close the strait have already sent shockwaves through energy markets. Following the news of the US strikes, the price of Brent crude oil jumped by nearly 10%, rising above $80 a barrel. Furthermore, the nearly 40,000 US troops stationed across the Persian Gulf are now on high alert, as they are potential targets for Iranian retaliation through its powerful regional allies, like the Houthis in Yemen. The path forward is dangerously uncertain. Both the United States and Iran are standing their ground, making the possibility of miscalculation extremely high. One side might misinterpret the other's actions or intentions, leading to a rapid and unintended escalation. If Iran chooses to retaliate directly against US forces or its interests in the region, the Trump administration has made it clear it would respond with even greater force. This could quickly spiral into a cycle of attack and counterattack, drawing both nations deeper into a direct military conflict that neither side claims to want. The risks of a wider war are immense. A full-scale conflict would not be contained between the US and Iran. It would likely involve Iran's network of proxy forces across the Middle East, from Hezbollah in Lebanon to militias in Iraq and Syria, and the Houthis in Yemen. This would destabilize the entire region, threatening key US allies like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The global economy would suffer a severe blow. A prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz would cause a massive spike in oil prices, potentially triggering a worldwide recession and creating economic hardship far from the battlefield. Despite the grim outlook, there are still faint glimmers of hope for a peaceful resolution. International pressure for de-escalation is immense. The United Nations, the European Union, and even key Arab states in the Gulf are urgently calling for restraint and dialogue. These countries are working behind the scenes to open channels of communication and find a diplomatic off-ramp. If both sides can be persuaded to step back from the brink and accept mediation, it might be possible to lower the temperature. The challenge is finding a solution that allows both Washington and Tehran to save face. Ultimately, we are closer to a major war in the Middle East than we have been in decades. The US strikes, while intended to be decisive, have instead opened a Pandora's box of potential consequences. Iran is now cornered, and its response will be critical. If its leadership chooses major retaliation, a broader conflict seems almost inevitable. If, however, international calls for calm prevail and a path to diplomacy can be found, this crisis could still be averted. For now, the world watches and waits, hoping that reason will triumph over the powerful drums of war.